Hey guys, this is Justin. Hello and welcome to another video. Today's content is going to be a little bit different because I am making a argument. I'm selling myself. Star Wars, hire me. Let's get started. Alright, let's get right into things. On my YouTube channel, I make a series called Battle Breakdowns, where I take sometimes major, sometimes minor battles from Star Wars Legends and canon, and I try to visually explain them with a focus on tactics, strategy, force composition, etc. I believe one of my battle breakdowns, specifically my breakdown of the Battle of Endor, was used in the creation of a diagram for an upcoming Star Wars book, Battles That Changed the Galaxy. Now, before I get into why I believe that, and the rest of this video, I just want to say that I'm not mad about this at all. If, and that's an if, they did use my work, I think that's the coolest thing ever. I'm a Star Wars fan. I don't own the Star Wars brand. I don't own the Star Wars IP. I don't own the Battle of Endor or its tactics. If they did use my work, I think it's cool that I contributed in a very, very, very minor way to Star Wars canon. And I'll just say as well, Lucasfilm, Star Wars, Disney, whoever, you're free to use my work anytime you want if there's something in there that's even a little bit useful. So I do briefly want to spend some time looking at why I think they used my work for reference and why it's important as well. Alright, so as I said, the book is called Star Wars Battles That Changed the Galaxy. It was written by one of my favorite authors, Jason Fry, and it comes out on October 5th. I'll include a link to pre-order down in the description. I'm really excited for this book because it's long, over 150 pages, and is focused on my favorite part of Star Wars battle and tactics. But I was also a little bit worried because I've noticed that some Star Wars reference books, as of late at least, have somewhat been collections of information we already had, and that may be because the sequel trilogy until recently was running. But for this book, I was really hoping we'd get not only new lore, but also new illustrations, especially of the battle breakdown variety. I did notice in the first book preview, we did get some little lore tidbits, but not a whole lot in the way of illustration. There was this one picture of the Battle of Scarif that was pretty cool. I think it's based off the Rogue One scene. Still, a map is awesome, but there's nothing really completely new out there, a lot of screenshots from the films or whatever else. However, we got a new preview today, and while most of the book was sort of the same, a lot of screenshots from Rebels or the Clone Wars or whatever else, I definitely did notice the Battle of Endor was a little bit different. We get a full breakdown of the Battle of Endor, and I gotta say, I immediately sort of recognized it as very, very similar to my own. And let's talk about those similarities. And we use my thumbnail mostly because if you search Battle of Endor fleet, that's one of the first results. Alright, so the first thing I noticed, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this, was Star Destroyer formation. First of all, the Star Destroyers aren't really laid out like this in the movie. It was something I sort of made up in my battle breakdown to save space, but we see kind of similarly 6 groups of 5 Star Destroyers in this sort of triangle pattern with 2 groups at the front and 1 at the back on each side of the SSD. That's not really reflective of what we got in the movie, where the Super Star Destroyer is up a little bit further and the ships are spread out more wide than compact like that. I also had 4 Star Destroyers flanking the back of the SSD, which we see here, and a line of TIE fighters at the front, with other smaller groups of interceptors interspersed. I also included 2 unique ships, although in mine, one was an interdictor, the other was a battle cruiser, although I will say I also had my interdictor sort of off the main battle line. My other unique ship, they chose an interdictor, I chose a battle cruiser, was sort of squaring off one of the rear triangles. There are differences though. Aside from the interdictor not being a battle cruiser, I had my fleets in a different orientation, pretty much flipped. I thought it would make more sense for the rebels to be sort of pincered between the 2 fleets. And there are some differences, but also similarities with the battle. For example, both of us focused on fighters attacking the communications cruiser and the interdictor, which I'm not sure is a part of canon yet. They do a better job illustrating the melee. Our retreats look slightly different, but I think you guys get the idea. So I feel very confident that there was at least inspiration taken. Maybe they had my video open while they were doing it, and as I said, I think that that is really, really cool. My thing is, let's do more, because a lot of the difficulty in making these battles is I've got nothing to go off. If I end up making a lot of the lore on my own, there's nothing that describes the formation of the Star Destroyers, for example. There's usually not much that talks about, say, the tactics, for example, at least primary sources. We usually have to wait for stuff like the Essential Guide to Warfare to cover that. And there's just not enough coverage of stuff like this in Star Wars, but trust me when I say that there is a really big market for this kind of content. I mean, that video that I did on the Battle of Endor has about 500,000 views. My video on the Battle of Jakku has about 2 million, and that's because people love the discussion of tactics, and even more than that, they like to see this stuff brought to life, even if it is in an incredibly simple way. I mean, for assets, I was basically using triangles and free 3 Mon Calamari cruiser models. And I guess where I get a little bit frustrated is that the bits we've seen of this book, and to be fair, it's only a few pages out of a book that will be 200 plus pages, don't really have the same level of at least visual breakdown. Like, the Endor stuff is cool because it talks about how capital ships maintained positions while the fighters were doing X and Y. But I mean, the Battle of Endor is also one of the most well-documented battles in Star Wars, and Legends it's covered everywhere from the movie itself to the novelization to lots of other pieces of individual content. There are other battles in Star Wars that either occur just on pages or are a bit of background, like the Battle of Coruscant, for example, that could really use more detail. Also, let's go beyond the lore too. Let's point out what the Empire did wrong at Endor. I did a whole video on what the Empire should have done at Scarif. That kind of stuff is really fun in universe, and I think we could just do with so much more of it. So whether you actually choose to let me help or not, that was sort of a joke at the beginning, but also a real thing. I would 100% love to contribute here. Let's try to focus more on this side of Star Wars. And what's more, when it comes to tactics and strategy and force composition, let's get lore beyond what is explicitly on screen or on the page. But maybe I've got this all wrong. It's definitely possible, as I mentioned, that my video was not inspiration, but if it was, I've got lots of others like them. Let's get to work, I guess. But until next time, this is all from me. Have a good one, be safe, and may the Force be with you.